Welcome to the Develop Yourself podcast, where we teach you everything you need to land your first job as a software developer by learning to develop yourself, your skills, your network, and more. I'm Brian, your host. So maybe don't be a junior developer. This may sound harsh, but my goal here is to give you the advice that I think is missing online and to get real about the job market, how expectations are different than they were 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, and what you can do to avoid the junior developer death trap. Before we dive into that, I have to let you know we have one, maybe 2 spots left for the last cohort of the year for Parsity. You're going to get access to our cloud curriculum, get to work one-on-one with me, our amazing mentors, and also get access to the Python data course, which is underway. I'm so excited about this. So if you're interested in joining, go to parsity.io, parsity.io. Back to the show. Why don't you want to be a junior developer? They're plentiful, they're expendable, and they are a major risk for any company to hire. Now, unfortunately, this is the goal for many college grads and people learning how to code. Let me be very clear. Companies do not want to take a chance on you. And before you turn this off and be like, geez, this guy, I thought he was the optimistic guy. I am. I just want to tell you what the reality is so you can beat the game that is being played. Let me ask you something. Are you a passionate, aspiring coder looking for an opportunity to learn? I got news for you. So are 99% of the bootcamp graduates on LinkedIn. And this is totally fine, by the way. You should be all of these things. You should be passionate. You should enjoy coding. You should be looking for opportunities to learn. But companies are just a lot less willing to take risks right now. High interest rates. Software developers tend to stay at jobs really short. We have one of the shortest tenures of all professional jobs out there. And the demand for coders is beginning to match the supply. Beginning, by the way, there is still a supply and demand issue that you can just look this up. I'm not making this up. This is just a fact of the market. So before you slam your laptop closed and you give up on coding, you turn the podcast off, you cuss me out, and you say, what a jerk. Let me tell you something. Before you go pursue a career as a wind turbine technician or something, or invest in a scam coin, I want to reveal to you how you can beat most bootcamp grads step by step. Step 1, understand junior developer economics. Junior developers are risky hires. I was a hiring manager for years at a big company, Clorox, and I had the option of hiring 1 senior developer at a certain point or 2 juniors. I had this option a few different times throughout my tenure there. We were looking to hire people and they said, well, hey, what do you want to do? We have this much budget. We could hire like 1 super senior, or you can get 2 or maybe even 3 junior developers. I generally chose to go with juniors. Now, here's why. Our tech stack and code base were not super complex at the time. We had a couple mid-level developers and one that was getting into senior at that time, and I thought they can mentor these new people. I don't regret this decision at all. It made complete economic sense, and here's why. Here are the economics of the junior developer market. If you're a company and you hire entry-level talent, you're going to get them at a very low rate, sometimes for half as much as a senior developer. If they stay with you for a while, they're not going to be junior anymore. Within about a year, they should be around mid-level. They really should. They should not be junior for more than a year, 2 tops. I mean, tops would be tops, right? They should really be at that year mark, kind of moving into more mid-level, meaning they can be autonomous, kind of do stuff on their own. Their salary, by the way, will not grow at the same pace as their skills. So basically, you bought talent at a really low price. This is just economics 101. I mean, do you think companies are trying to pay you way more than you're worth? They're trying to pay you as little as possible, if I'm being completely honest with you. And you can think this is unfair, or maybe that I'm shady or whatever. I don't know. All I can say is that this was the economics that I took into consideration when I decided whether I was going to hire 1 senior or hire 2 juniors. Even if I gave these people like 10% raises, which I wasn't able to do. No one's going to let me just do that kind of thing, by the way. You have a budget to work with. So if their salary grows at the incremental rate of 3 to 5% a year, and you hired them for, let's say, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000, which is average junior developer salary in most of the United States, maybe $100,000 if you're on the coast or something like that. Seniors, by the way, on the coast would be getting $150,000, $170,000, $200,000. So you're talking about double the salary, basically. So if that junior developer gets a crazy raise, 10% raise, and they were already at the top of the junior developer pay scale, they make it $110,000, which is not going to happen in a year at a job. You're not going to get a 10% pay raise anywhere. Let's say you get a 3%, so $103,000. Now you have mid-level talent for $103,000 rather than $140,000. Let's say they keep staying there and they stay there for 5 years and you keep giving them massive raises every year, 10% year over year. And at the end of 5 years, they're somewhere around the $130,000 or $40,000 mark. They're still significantly under the $170,000 mark you would have paid to hire the senior. So this gamble only works if the junior developer actually stays. That scenario is less and less likely since developers are more likely than other professions to job hop, which is a good thing in my opinion. We all like money. We go job hopping around. And this kind of hurts more junior people because they try to get into the game and the companies feel bitten or jaded because they say, oh man, that other person we hired, they left after 6 months and now they're balling out of control and driving around in a Tesla in San Francisco. Meanwhile, we are out of luck and we spent all this time training them and now they're balling out of control. So they don't want to do that. As demand slows from the outrageous peak of the pandemic, businesses are slowly correcting and being safer with who they hire. This is the reality that you're up against. And I don't blame the businesses necessarily for doing this. I think it is short-sighted, but we can't control what large businesses do, can we? We can only control what we can do. So here is step 2. You need to de-risk yourself. Now that you know that junior developers are an inherently risky hire, not just in tech, by the way, this is in many industries. Think about hiring anybody that's entry level. If I, as a software developer with 10 years of experience, walked into Starbucks and said, I want to work as a barista, they're going to say, cool. How much experience do you have as a barista? I'm going to say 0. They're going to say, great. You are not hireable at this point. We are looking for people that have some experience. I don't care that you worked at this company or you did this thing that you think is impressive. We don't care. That means 0 to us here. And then I walk down the street and I want to be a cashier at the local supermarket. And they say, great, how many years of experience? I can go on and on, right? This isn't just tech. This is just the way things work. So I think people need to get away from this whole thing. Like, tech is so unfair. They want to pay you $100,000+, but they expect all this experience. Well, yeah. And maybe you're saying, well, wait a minute. I am a junior. Like, what am I supposed to do? Yeah, I get it. Just bear with me. Here. The word junior is so subjective that it's nearly meaningless. What it basically boils down to is someone who has so little practical experience that they cannot be trusted to do nearly anything on their own. That means they'll need significant hand-holding on the job for potentially months. They may take on the easier stuff. They may even break some things. That's kind of expected. They're not going to contribute a whole lot. Here's the other thing. Nearly every developer will be junior when they first join a company, unless they are very senior. If you're a mid-level developer and you join a brand new company, or even a senior and you join a brand new company, you're going to be pretty useless for a week, 2, 3, 4, maybe months, depending on the complexity of what you're working on. It's just that the senior has been around long enough to understand that they don't know everything, but they will. And they can kind of get a little bit of the lay of the land quicker. And you can trust them with basic things like, you know how to do your work, you know how to do the process, the software development lifecycle. You kind of know how the game gets played, the agile ceremonies, all this jargon and junk that you've just learned from being at different companies over years. You can probably jump into the code base immediately and do a few little minor things here and there, or maybe even some not so minor things. So you don't actually need to be a mid-level developer to be a safe hire. You just need to avoid the telltale signs that you are, in fact, a junior. So quite simply, stop downplaying yourself. I can't tell you how many interviews I've had, which was a lot, by the way, during the pandemic hiring spree, where I was interviewing a junior developer candidate. They'd come in and I asked them about a technical project they'd worked on. And they would almost universally downplay it. They'd be like, well, I worked on this little app for this boot camp. It was all right. I'm like, oh, why would you say that? Why would you make it so hard for me to give you a yes? The reason I'm interviewing you is because I want to hire you. Nobody, unless you're some sick, sadistic weirdo, would invite somebody to an interview and be like, I'm going to show them. I'm going to really teach them never to come here and interview again. They ultimately want to hire you. Now, sometimes you will meet jerks in an interview. People have bad days. There's too many things to take into account for why people are jerks in interviews. But remember, they found you, they have a budget, they want to hire you, they have a need, they have a position they want to fill. They're likely feeling the pressure to hire. That's why you're there. So, in order to stop downplaying yourself, don't talk about being a junior. Remove aspiring, remove learning, remove I want a chance from your resume and LinkedIn. Come on strong. Say, I am a software developer and I do these things. I create complex web apps that help businesses scale and make money, or whatever. Say something that if you were a business and you looked at you, would you be like, yeah, I want to hire that person? Or would you look at them like, oof, am I taking a chance here? Businesses don't like taking chances. The only reason they took a chance during the pandemic hiring spree is because they were so desperate. They had so much stuff going on. Everybody was on the web. It was blown out of proportion. And so they hired these outrageous amounts of people just to keep up with the insane demand they were seeing. Now that we're back to quote unquote normal, that demand doesn't exist. It's basically back to what it was pre-pandemic, which is so odd to me because people keep saying it's like the worst market in the world. I'm like, it's not good, but it's also back to approaching a more normal market. This is just the reality. You have to know some things in order to get hired. And you also have to know how to play the game of getting hired and also be patient and all sorts of other things I could go on and on about here. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about how you can stop being so much of a junior. So during the interview, stop talking about that project from your school or boot camp and talk about the app or website that you're launching or have launched. And yes, you need to have a project to talk about. And I have a podcast, articles where I walk through all that. You can learn how to think of an interesting project, solve a problem for yourself, for others, for your mom or dad or a business down the street, and you'll have something interesting to talk about that you can point to. Use strong language about your experience and speak to the benefits of the features you created. Instead of saying, I created a full stack app with Java, TypeScript, Next, Redux, AWS, Lambdas, and just having this laundry list of tech, try something like this. I migrated a JavaScript app to use TypeScript, which improved developer experience and the velocity and allowed us to ship faster and reach customers with better quality code. That is something that makes you sound like an engineer that we like and trust because you say, oh, you did this thing which led to this benefit. Too often people say, I made an app which used this technology. That's good because it helps people understand which technologies you actually know, which can really be helpful on the job hunt for a company looking for a TypeScript developer, for example, but it doesn't make you stand out. So say what you did with the technology and what was the benefit of that thing? How did it improve the app, the experience, the developer experience, the safety? Think of all these things and think how you can construct a nice resume using that general pattern. Step 3, build interesting stuff. Every time I talk about a student from Parsity getting hired as a developer or how the market isn't that terrible, I just have too many examples in my personal and professional life of people getting hired, especially at Parsity, people that are, in their 40s, their 30s, never knew how to code, don't live in big cities. These people are making it. We have the proof. And sometimes I write about it and I get too many mean comments and emails. They're like, you don't understand how bad the market is, bro. And I'm like, you're right. What do I know? Not like I got laid off this year and also hired this year, or like I went to a boot camp at 30, or like I've helped 100 plus developers get hired over the last 10 years. Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about. I have zero clue. I'm still a software developer, by the way. I've been an engineering manager, as you know. I'm currently working as a senior full stack developer at another company right now at a small startup. I was an associate director before this. What I'm trying to tell you is I'm not some dude talking about the boot camp I own and haven't been in the field. I am currently in the field experiencing what you are experiencing. I have coworkers that were laid off. They're all hired. I have people in the boot camp getting hired. I know people in my personal community that are getting hired. I also know that a lot of people are having a ton of trouble. And when these people write to me, I get it. I get that they're frustrated. I get that they're mad. I don't appreciate it, but I generally want to help them. So what I do is I say, send me your LinkedIn, send me your resume. And what I find is interesting, or let me rephrase that. It's uninteresting. Their LinkedIn profile is a blank picture with 30 connections. The one post they have is complaining about the job market. I check their GitHub and I see a clone of another popular app with tons of errors inside of it. The resume has their most recent job, which is a wind turbine technician at the very top. I feel bad for them. And I genuinely really want to see them succeed, even if they hate my guts. This is the reason why I will often write back and say, hey, you know what? Send me your resume. Send me your LinkedIn. Let me see if I can help you. Because sometimes I think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just completely naive and optimistic. And maybe everything I'm seeing in my personal and professional life is just warped, right? Maybe I'm in a little box and I have zero clue what's really going on out there. Most people don't actually want my help, I found out. They want pity. And I can sympathize. I also refuse. Let me make this very simple for you. Build an app that you might actually find useful and deploy it. Write about this experience online. Connect with the people who show interest in what you're writing by looking at the likes, looking at the comments, looking at who's viewed it. Try to get users for your app. And finally, work for free if you have to. And don't work for free as in getting used and abused by the market. Work for free as in walk down Main Street of your community or find people online that you know and trust or family members and see what they can use your talents for. If they have an awful website or if they have no website, do it for free. Get a recommendation from them. Change your title to freelance web engineer. And here's the most important thing. Your mileage will vary. I can guarantee you're going to get hired. In fact, at Parsity, we have a guarantee that you will get hired that we're rolling out. I'm experimenting with this because I can guarantee that you will get hired. What I cannot control, though, is the timeline, and neither can you. Now, we do have a timeline at Parsity of 6 months. It's an arbitrary timeline based on historical evidence that we see with people that graduate the program, do all the things we say. In 6 months, they generally will get hired. Some people don't do all these things. They have other issues, personal things that come up. I get it. Your timeline is ultimately going to be your timeline. The only thing I know is that quitting is the surest path towards failure and is the most well-traveled. Now I'm a cornball. I get it. I'm a father. I'm also a former addict. I'm also a career changer. I've seen my own life transform in ways I never thought possible. I've seen other people's lives transform in ways I've never thought possible. I've interviewed people on this show that are inspiring and have amazing stories that blow me away. So I know what is possible. I also know what is not possible. And I know that people generally do not follow a lot of the things that I tell them that they read online. They don't follow a lot of the things they know they should be doing for a variety of reasons. I can't solve all that, but you might need to. And please, the one thing I can tell you, don't give up if you're feeling completely stuck, like you don't know what you're doing, you don't know where to go. Reach out. I hope I don't regret this, but if you do want a little bit of advice, I'm always happy to do that. I do my best to look at my LinkedIn messages and things like that. That is a tough way to reach me. So if you really want to, my email is going to be at the bottom of these show notes. Oof, hope I don't regret this one. But if you do want help and you're feeling totally stuck, I'm going to do my best to answer each one of those emails and give you some targeted advice about what you might need to do. I always hope that's helpful. Oh, and we only have 2 spots, maybe 1 spot left available for Parsity for the upcoming cohort, the last one of the year, one that I know you're going to want to be a part of because we have so much new cool stuff happening. Also, the Python data course coming so soon, it's going to blow your mind. Always hope that's helpful. See you around. That'll do it for today's episode of the Develop Yourself podcast. To learn more about becoming a software engineer with us, then check out parsity.io. If you're not quite ready for that, then jump into our dev30.xyz program, which is 30 days of working on your mindset, habits, and JavaScript skills. Totally worth it. See you next week.